those personifies, yeah. Mm.
Was he expelled immediately after
He was expelled immediately,
the
yeah.
speech?
And some very senior black members of staff were involved in his expulsion. I won't mention their names.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is the type of problem we had.
Okay. Can we touch on Africanization
Oh.
of the University of the North?
That is a very complicated subject. We were trying to hoist the apartheid system by its own pattern. You know, you told us that we should come to the Bantustans to run our own affairs. Why are you not allowing us to run our affairs? If you're that honest, we are here, we are highly educated, and you still, this is a black university run by whites. Why? That was the basic argument there. And we fought we said at least, let us get our symbols right. At the very least, let us get our symbols right. It will take us time to Africanize the curriculum. It will take us time to change the staff demographics. It will take us time to do these things. But let us tackle the symbolic level first. Let's get an African rector at the University of the North as a test case. Oh, you should have seen that. When I said that the least you can do for blacks in this country is have Africans run this university. That was what drove me into exile. So Africanization for us then had to do with at least getting the symbols right at the level of governance. The people to run the institutions should themselves be Africans. The limitation we had then is that we didn't have the power ourselves to Africanize. You know, the government that was going to Africanize the universities for us. I think that was the problem.
Okay.
That was a problem. And that's why when the first African rector took over TEFLOP, the first thing he did was to fire me. You see, the ironies of Africanization. But if you look very carefully at the book, we still talk in terms of the nature of university, in terms of academic freedom, in terms of autonomy. So the fundamental principles of university we were prepared to protect. In a sense, there's something very liberal about the document, but we wanted the Africans to do these things, you know, themselves. And those days, of course, we were influenced by Kwame Nkrumah. Pan-Africanism in the continent was still very strong, and that's what we're trying to do. We didn't at that point get into the curriculum, how to Africanize the curriculum. And we hadn't developed to that level, but are interested only in forms of control. That was what worrying us.
Okay, touching on the curriculum, what was the curriculum like at TEFLOP during those?
Firstly, it was a curriculum. We live in an economy that has a core. There are certain core things that sustain this country, like mining, like agriculture. These are part of what they call the core economy. Mining, agriculture, you know, these things. The curriculum at the University of the North didn't train students to respond to the core economy of the country. You see, what it did, if you look at the curriculum, 90% of the graduates were in the arts education. Okay. Which means that the curriculum was designed to prepare our students for the periphery of the economy. By periphery meaning those who would have enough taste, enough education to buy certain kinds of goods in the market. You see? So it was a curriculum geared for the periphery of the economy, just like now in most of our universities. You are educated so that you'll have enough taste to buy a BM. You'll have enough taste to buy a Mac. You'll have enough taste perhaps to want to go to Mauritius for a vacation. This is the periphery. It's a kind of consumer economy. But the productive sector, you are not allowed to. That's why now we're getting better. You have health sciences, we have agriculture. But those days, well, TEFLOP still has a faculty of theology. No? There was a time at TEFLOP when there were more staff members than students in the faculty of theology. And they made sure that they appointed professors. It was one of the top-heavy faculty there. It was a priority, but no agriculture. No, what you have now is the medical sciences, health sciences. All the things that have just been introduced, they were not there. So we're being trained, trained to have educated appetites to buy their goods, but not to produce anything for ourselves. We were also educated, even the best of us, even the ones who did science, they were educated to be employees, not employers. If you look at the way that curriculum was designed, it was exactly that. And that is what, and that later when we became more sophisticated, we began to address these things. It also didn't respect African culture, which even now I feel strongly about that. That if you're going to have TEFLOP like Venda, it's almost everybody there is an African. I'm talking of students. Why is it that the experiences that are reflected in our courses are European and urban? If you look at the experiences in history, the experiences in psychology, the experiences in public administration, you look at the experiences reflected in the courses that we offer, they are urban and European experiences. Why is it? And yet the institutions are located in African context and predominantly African students. Why? You see, these are the things that I think we have to address. For instance, let me give you one little cultural thing that there's lots of talk nowadays. Let me give another two examples. We have TEFLOP in Venda fought if the student falls ill, for instance, and you can't write the test on exam, we say to the student, no, we're prepared to excuse you provided you come up with a medical certificate. Okay? Now, students have come to me here. I said, look, I've been to a doctor, but my doctor can't write. What do you do with that? Where do you get a medical certificate? You see, and these are serious issues. And I do not want to say to anybody that our African medicine men and women are always wrong. I believe that they have medical insights in so many ways. One of our academics here just got a PhD from Medunsa on African psychiatry, how our African medicine men have psychiatric insights and they've healed psychiatric patients. I do not want to believe that all the centuries we've been around here, our parents haven't developed some kind of medical insight. Our mothers used to give birth here all by themselves. They were midwives. I was born not in the hospital, but in my mother's home. Where did they get? What I'm trying to say that, and yet all these things are not acknowledged as knowledge. Where is the medical certificate from a witch doctor, or you call him a witch doctor? You see, that's one thing. The second thing, just now, we would talk about transparency. Transparency. Let us be transparent. It's in every white paper on higher education, everywhere, even COSATU talks of transparency. Tell me, in an African setup, how your father could be transparent to you about his personal things. There's no way in which an African father can disclose everything he does, even at work, to his daughter or son. It is against African culture. So there's this thing called transparency. It's unworkable in an African community. You do not expect somebody who has been to a so-called witch doctor to come to a vice chancellor that, look, you know, I'm told, here, let me give a story. They said, no, Professor Nkondo runs the University of Venda, you know, he's using a buffalo. There's a buffalo walking around here. Don't worry about the objective buffalo. What about the mind that believes strongly that there's a buffalo on campus and they behave accordingly? You see, unless you deal with the cultural imperatives, you will never understand why there's no transparency at TEFLOP or here. You see what I mean? But I'm saying that the whole question of the cultural imperative in our education is not taken seriously, is not even understood. And that's why when we submitted our case to the National Commission on Higher Education, we said, please leave a chapter on culture. And they wouldn't deal with that problem. So there are all those things that our curriculum lacks. The question of not responding to the core economy, and the question that, you know, the governance systems in the country are not taking enough care to look at the cultural imperatives of governance, of administration. You say, I have an open door policy. Very few people believe that a vice chancellor can ever have an open door policy, because culturally it can't work like that. You know, and I always say to my staff, what the servants say about their boss in his presence is not the same as what they say about him in his absence. What the boss in a factory says about his servants in their presence is also not the same as what he says about them in their absence. This is the logic of power and of culture. Where is transparency there? You say, unless we begin to deal with the cultural imperatives of this governance concept, but transparency, inclusiveness, participation, we'll get nowhere. That's why in a typical African setting, you come here, we are at a meeting of the library committee. We make decisions. 2 days later, Toko says, I'm not part of that decision. You know, what I'm trying to say, there are those issues. There are those issues that we have to deal with. Another issue that we have to deal with, nobody has ever studied how the black child learns.